Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome yet again to this episode of Dinner Guide. My name is Chef Andy, your regular host, and today we are going to be going through a very, very beautiful journey. We're going to be touching on some very, very beautiful continental dishes, and on this particular episode we're going to be focusing on some dishes from the American continent or the American globe. And on this particular episode I'm going to be showing you how to make a very, very simple southern stuffed chicken. Before we proceed, we're going to start off by introducing the ingredients. So from the very front, I've got 1 piece of egg there and some sweet corn. I've also got some cheddar cheese and some Havarti cheese. We've also got some rice there, a bit of some spring onion, some green and red peppers there, a bit of a garlic clove there, a bit of some garam masala and some cloves. I also have some 2 pieces of chicken breast here, some beautiful fresh coriander. I also have a nice bowl here filled with some breadcrumbs and the other filled with some flour. We also have some olive oil, a bit of salt for seasoning, some regular water which we'll be using in a short while, and last but not least, a muddle stick for tenderizing your chicken breast. You'll also require some cling film which you're also going to be using to really hold your chicken together, and the rest of everything we're going to be making you're all going to see on this very show. So we're going to take a short break now, give you a bit of time to freshen up, get ready for the show. And if you're going to be taking some notes as well, this is your chance to grab your notebook and your pen. And when we come back, we're going to just go right into it. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just tuning in, we were just talking about the ingredients that we're going to be working with today, and we're now just going to go ahead and start off. But before we do so, we're going to be making about 2 to 3 dishes today, all separate and all plated together. But first off, we're going to start by preparing our starch, which is going to take a few minutes to cook, which is going to be your rice. So for that, you will require your garam masala and your cloves. Your rice, of course, about half a cup should do. You're also going to need a bit of garlic and just a little bit of some spring onion. So we're going to start off the first process by just cutting our leek there, our stock of leek into some strips. And then turn that around and proceed to cut that into some very fine chop. Simple as that. And all we are going to do now is we're going to incorporate all these ingredients into a pot that we're going to be making our rice in. So I'm going to start by adding my spring onion into the pan. Next up, add your rice. Add your garam masala as well. To that also incorporate about half a teaspoon of salt for flavor. A bit of olive oil as well. About a tablespoon should do. And then next up, about half a cup of water. And all you're going to do now is begin to reheat your pan. So get the pan going now. And very, very important, give your pot a bit of a mixture. And to that, we're going to add about 2 pieces of garlic cloves, but very importantly, be sure to also begin by first piercing that head, allowing you to really release the flavors. So I'm going to be using about 3 cloves of garlic for this recipe. So just break the tips by hand, the head, by hand, and now allow that to continue cooking. We're just going to put a lid on that and just allow that to proceed. And while that continues, we're going to go into the second part of the dish, which is basically the chicken. But before we do so, I'm going to start off by preparing some of the items we'll be using for the filling. So I'm going to start off by just peeling that red pepper, making sure to get those nice big chunks of flesh. And I'll do the same with some green pepper. You can just proceed once more to take out those inside grayish membranes. Those are basically the ones that are going to give your pepper quite a bit of bitterness. So be sure to slice those and discard them before you proceed with before you proceed to actually cut your peppers a little thinner. So just take your time to make sure to discard the seeds as well, and just proceed to do the same until your bell pepper pieces are almost completely red on the inside, and your green ones as well. And also you're also trying to make sure that you don't have any of those seeds as well, or that membrane on the inside, the bitterish one. So proceed to do so to the very end, and proceed to discard the rest. Once you're done, grab your knife and, using the assistance of your board, press into the board, and using your knife, begin to slice your pepper almost halfway right through. And then, of course, discarding the inside and keeping only the very, very skins. So just proceed to do the same. And one thing to also remember at this stage, be very careful when doing so. Also try and be very, very vigilant while doing so to make sure you don't actually slice your fingers. And as I said, the trick is very simple. It's only a matter of just grabbing your slice of pepper, press it onto the board with the inside facing the top, and beginning from one end, just try and cut right through that inner soft skin and that nice tough back of the pepper, and it should actually be very, very simple. So proceed to do the same for all the pepper pieces. Until you get to the very end. And once you're done, discard those insides. And now you can reserve those nice, beautiful skin layers. And you can actually reserve those on the side. Now next up, we're going to start with the chicken. So I'm just going to move my chicken pieces onto the board and proceed by just trimming off those excess pieces. And then basically you're looking for something that's just a little cleaned out and well presentable. And now all you're going to do is, starting from the thickest side of your breast, begin to cut right through the center, of course pressing onto your board for support, and proceed to cut right through, but not all the way through. And then proceed to just butterfly your chicken breast like that, and do the same for the other piece. So cut right through the middle, but not to the very end. And basically what you should have is something that resembles more like two breasts out of the one piece. And now next up, grab a bit of some parchment paper and just proceed to just dry off your pieces of chicken slightly. And the same on the other side. And discard your kitchen paper. And now all you're left to do is proceed to flatten the pieces of chicken that you have. So you will need a bit of cling film for that. And it's a very, very simple technique. All you're going to do is just roll out your piece of cling film and proceed to add your chicken pieces onto the board like that. And then next up, slide out another piece which will go right over the top of your breasts. Cut. And now all you're left to do is, using your piece of stick or even a rolling pin, proceed to tap your chickens. Of course, starting from the center of the chicken and work your way towards the outside. And this should actually help you to really just get a very, very thin sheet of chicken. And proceed to do the same for the other piece. Of course, working your way from the center and continue to beat as you go right around the edges. So basically this is just definitely also something also to be very cautious about. Also very, very easy to actually braise or bruise your chicken. So very, very important that you do take quite a bit of time and not do this in a hurry, and always just be very gentle while doing so. You'd actually rather take more time doing it than do it too quickly and do it in a hurry. Right, so your chicken should actually have reduced in thickness by about half before you actually call it done. Simple as that. We're just going to quickly check on our rice quickly. Just using a spoon, begin to just break your rice. It's now almost done. So just begin to just break your rice in the pan there. And now that's almost cooked. We're just going to add a little bit of water in there and cover it once more and just allow it to steam till it's finally cooked. You can set the spoon aside. And now just to bring your attention back to the chicken. So once that is done, proceed to remove that sheet of cling film from the top, hereby proceeding to expose the surface of your chicken. And all you need to do now is proceed to season it lightly with a bit of salt. And basically what you want to do now is grab your one piece of chicken and just place it right almost over the other one, almost as if to overlap the two pieces together. And of course trying to make sure to have a nice thin consistent layer of your chicken. And now very simply proceed to start stuffing your chicken. So we're going to start off with a bit of the green pepper at the very end, and then proceed to add a bit of the red pepper almost also to the other end. And now all you're going to do is begin to fold over everything together, but before you do so, Remember, we also have some slices of some Havarti cheese. So I'm just going to take each slice and just place it right over the pepper. Of course, making sure to discard the wax paper, dividing your sheets of your slices of cheese. And do the same right over the green pepper, as so. And then just slightly season once more with just a bit of salt. You can actually also use just a bit of some ground peppercorns. And once you get to that stage, you can actually now have your board stretched out lengthways, and this will actually make it easier for you to roll everything together. And beginning with the end closest to you, begin to fold over, pressing in and releasing some of that cling film. And then proceed by holding on to now the chicken breast itself, and proceed to go right over everything else, just until you get to the very end. And once you get that far, just push everything, try and push everything right to the center, and begin now, right, and now begin to just cover your cling film, making sure that the flap is actually tucked right over the chicken piece, and then proceed to just roll it out like that, and proceed and roll to the very end. And now you're just going to finish that off by grabbing some of your cling film and stretching it out once more over your board. And now all you need to do is just fold over on the sides, fold in the sides rather, and now place that over the next sheet of cling film and proceed to roll as you did for the first situation, making sure to exert as much pressure as you can, and also making sure to keep it as tight as you can. Once it's nice and tight and you've got something that resembles a nice big lump of chicken, proceed to cut your cling film. And all you need to do now is grab one side and begin to twist. It can be whichever direction you prefer. And once that's twisted, twist it in and tuck it in there, making sure that it's just hidden right under the surface of the cling film, and proceed to do the same thing on the other end, but this time rotating in the opposite direction, that way fastening your chicken breasts and the stuffing right inside. And all you need to do now is just throw that in the freezer for anywhere between half an hour to an hour, and by the time this comes out, it should actually form a nice workable piece that you can actually be able to coat. So we're just going to throw that in our freezer up here, and we're going to give that a few minutes. And while that continues, we're just going to come back to our rice. And now this is just about done. So I'm just going to give that quick mixture, and we can now turn off the heat and basically just proceed to plate your rice in a plate. And your nice, beautifully cooked rice is now ready. And you can actually get that beautiful aroma now from the spring onions and from the cloves. Nice, beautiful scent coming through. So now you can actually now rest your rice a little bit, allow it to cool off, and we can now just proceed to discard everything else. And now we've almost gone into the last and final stage of the dish, which is basically where we're just going to finish cooking the chicken and go straight onto the plating. But before we do so, we're going to take a very, very short break. And when we do come back, we're going to pull the chicken out. We're also going to bring it onto the counter once more. We're going to finish coating it and fry it. And then we basically go to the last and final stage, which is basically the presentation. So please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who are just tuning in, we've been working on some very, very beautiful dishes. We started off by making a very simple rice, which with that we entailed a bit of cloves and a bit of some spring onion and some garam masala. And now we're just about to finish the dish off, but first we're gonna go back to the chicken that we had in the fridge. Now it's a little set, so we can take it out and proceed. Now, for those of you who are also still tuning in and catching up with what you are doing, we stuffed this with some Havarti cheese and some peppers. And now we had allowed it to set in the fridge for a little bit before we proceed to coat it. And we're just going to take it out of the cling film now. And of course, be making sure to be very gentle while doing so. Remember, it is a stuffed chicken breast and it's very easily for this to fall apart. So very simply proceed to remove the cling film until your chicken breast is fully exposed. And now all you're left to do is proceed to coat it. But before we do so, begin firstly by heating up some oil where you're going to be cooking your chicken. Also, something important, also have your oven preheated. Remember, the chicken is going to finish cooking in there, so have your oven already preheating at this stage before you actually start. And all you're going to do now is proceed to crack some eggs into a plate or a bowl. Using a whisk, just whip those eggs lightly. And once perfectly combined, you can now remove your whisk and proceed now to the finishing off of the wrapping of the chickens, the stuffed chicken. So we're going to start off by taking it off the board and discarding your cling film, and begin foremost by tossing it in a bit of some egg and allow the excess just to fall off or just to roll off the breast, and then proceed to add that into a bowl with a bit of flour. Toss it around a few times, making sure to completely cover the outside. Next, proceed to return that once more into the egg, and this is basically just to form as a glue to hold on to the breadcrumbs. And once through the eggs for the second time into your bowl with the breadcrumbs, and proceed to sprinkle breadcrumbs right over the top, and proceed also to press the breadcrumbs very firmly onto your chicken. Of course, tossing your stuffed chicken breast around a few times. And once done, of course, always begin by establishing which side your flap is, your flap being the side that's open. And then just firm it up and also sprinkle just a bit of that breadcrumb on the sides. Shake the excess off and proceed to add to the oil, having the open side or the flap side at the bottom, and slide it in very slowly, allowing it to start cooking on the bottom side. And proceed to rinse your hands. And now proceed to discard your breadcrumbs, your eggs, and your flour. And just clean your surface. Right, so allow your chicken to start its first cooking and allow it to really brown on the bottom end. So very, very important to give it just a bit of time, especially on the bottom flap side. But something you can also do to aid it in browning a little faster, you can actually just grab a spoon and proceed to just pour your oil right over the top of the chicken. This should actually really help you in sealing that layer of breadcrumbs a little faster. So you can actually tilt your pan forward into one side, and that should actually give you quite a bit of a well. And just proceed to pour your oil right over the chicken. And if you actually own a deep fryer, this could actually be very much easier. But I'm actually just using this particular technique for those of you who are cooking from home and might not actually own a deep fryer. This is still a very, very good technique that will work. And another thing as well, if you don't own an oven, you may actually want to roll out some very, very smaller pieces, and those will actually cook a little faster in the oil. But if you are making one as big as this one, which is about 400 grams of chicken, you might actually need quite a bit of oil to cook. Right, so once the bottom side is nice and brown, proceed to turn over. And proceed once more to use your spoon and proceed to spoon your hot oil right over your chicken. And this will actually really aid in giving your chicken a bit of stability, especially when it comes out of the oven. Just proceed to pour your oil right over. Remember, always be very vigilant about working with hot oil. And if you are going to decide to do it the same way I'm doing it, always be sure to use a pan that's a little bigger than the range on the cooker. And also make sure to be pouring the oil away from you and not towards you. Right, so now our chicken's now just beautifully browned on both sides. Next up, we're just going to now take this out of the oil and finish it off in the oven. So for that, you will need you'll need a baking sheet, of course. And I'm actually just using a bit of aluminum foil at the bottom. And now we can turn off our heat. And you can now just very gently proceed to lift your chicken from the oil, making sure, of course, to be very careful not to slide or drop your chicken. And proceed to move that onto your sheet, of course, having the flap side once more right at the bottom. And now this can actually now go into your oven, which we'll be cooking this for anywhere between 15 to 25 minutes. But we will actually be using some checking steps, which is basically you can actually use a bit of a toothpick or even a skewer, in which you'd actually be just pricking it right over the top and checking for the moistness on the inside. Now once you've got that beautiful golden crust achieved right over the top, as you can be able to see, your chicken is now ready to go into the oven for anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes at anywhere between 180 to 200 degrees. So we're just going to slide that in here. Now we're just going to calibrate our timer to about 15 minutes and set our temperature at between 180 and 200 degrees. And we're going to allow that to cook for anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes. And while we do so, I'm going to clean the counter and we're going to take a last and final break. But when we do come back, it's all about plating and finishing this very, very beautiful dish. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We were just finishing off a very, very simple dish, and it's now the last and final stage. So I'm just going to, as you can hear, the oven just went off. So using some gloves or any particular cloth that will aid you into holding your pan, use that and proceed to remove your chicken breast from the oven. And just set that aside and allow it to just slightly cool off. And while that continues, remember we also had some rice which we're just going to proceed into plating. So I'm just going to start off by adding my rice into a bowl. And this is just a very, very simple and easy technique of plating that you all can actually incorporate at home. So just using a spoon, proceed to add your rice into any bowl of choice. Particularly a good bowl that will aid you in portioning your food is always a good option. And then just proceed to add your rice while pressing hard into the bowl and continue to fill up until it gets to the very top. Then just proceed to continue pressing in. And remember, I'm particularly using rice that we've just cooked in the show today, and it's now totally cooled off. But this is just another way of reconstituting your rice, and also a very simple and easy way to reheat it without losing too much of that moisture. So very, very simply, once your bowl is full and it's nice and pressed right over the rim of the top, just throw that in the microwave. And you can reheat from anywhere between 30 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on how hot you'd like it to be. Just give that a bit of time to heat, and while that continues, just proceed to move your breast onto the board. That should be about okay. So very, very simple technique of plating your rice. Just grab your plate that you're going to be dishing on and easily just press the plate. Actually pick a spot on the plate that you'd like to put your rice on, and then easily just put the plate right over the bowl and turn it around, and just allow that a few minutes to just slide off the board and slide off your bowl and sit perfectly right onto your plate. And while you give that a bit of time, proceed now to just use a knife and proceed to begin slicing your chicken. Making sure, of course, to be very, very vigilant to make sure that the inside of your chicken is totally cooked and is not pink in color, and that your breast is also nice and firmly cooked. Right, so simple as that. Now you can actually proceed to grab even a lifter such as this one, and then just proceed to plate your chicken right over the sides like that. Of course, always making sure to display the nicest side, which is basically that beautiful inside that you have, and proceed to go right around your plate. Simple as that. And now all you're left to do is lift your bowl, and as you can see, Your rice sits very, very perfectly right in the center of the plate. And now just to finish that off, a bit of some sweet corn, just to give your plate a bit of a burst of color. Remember, it's always good also to use some different techniques to finish off your plate that show, first of all, for creativity, a bit of color, and last but not least, also a bit of variety. So just a bit of some corn right over the chicken there, and finish lastly by garnishing with some sprigs of some fresh coriander leaves. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I would present, or how I would plate my very own Southern stuffed chicken. And just to finish that off, probably just a bit of some crushed black pepper right over the top. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is now ready to serve. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you've actually managed to grasp something on the show today that you can be able to incorporate in your very own home kitchen. But from my end, this is as simple as it gets. Remember, there's so many also other different varieties you can decide to use for your filling. Any particular vegetable that will easily cook in a stuffed piece of chicken, and especially some very, very soft vegetables, is a good option. You can also alternatively have a bit of sauce with that. You can make any particular thing that particularly interests your palate. So please don't feel that you're restricted to do your Southern stuffed chicken as we did on the show today. But from my end, thank you so much once more. I will also remind you to leave your comments, inquiries, or any questions pertaining the show, and me and my coordinators will definitely be looking forward to getting back to you. So until the next episode, I'm now just going to go and dig into this beautiful dish. And until the next episode, thank you so much for tuning in today, and have a lovely evening, and see you soon.